Brian Jordan, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
So I got a call that said, this is Susan Bailey. And I said, yeah, but I'm sorry, I don't know a Susan Bailey. She goes, I'm Henry Aaron's secretary. And I went, yeah. She goes, Henry would like to talk to you. I said, yeah, okay. And he said, how would you like to fly down to Sarasota and look at our pictures? And I said, I would love to. He said, well, when can you do it? Jokingly, I said, tomorrow. He goes, okay, we'll take care of that. I'll meet you at the airport in Atlanta. Susan will have the arrangements. And then I get on a plane with Hank Aaron and fly down to Sarasota. He offers me a job, and I said, well, what team do you want me to manage? He goes, no, he wants you to be a pitching coach.
Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Most guys throw it this way, put the ball back in here, hands come around, and these two fingers come into the ball, and stiff wristed, no follow throw, and just a little up and goes in the bat. I hope there's no rotation on. The ball comes in there and doesn't bother. It doesn't never do the same thing twice.
This is Kyle Wright, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
One of my favorite moments for your career as of right now is actually this past week. It was a show of confidence by Brian Snitker. He left you in the game after bases were loaded. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it was really cool. I went back and I saw that clip on Instagram several times. I'll be honest, I watched it numerous times. Kind of gave me chills a little bit. It was just really cool. I was kind of lost my command a little bit there. Still made some good pitches, but was definitely getting a little tired. So whenever he said basically left me in the game, I felt like that kind of gave me what I needed to get me over the hump to make a good pitch, get a ground ball back to me, and get out of that inning.
This is Matt Olson. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond. Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. Not everybody gets this opportunity to kind of set up their roots and be somewhere long term that they grew up and have family and friends. So it happened pretty quick there in spring training, and it was just an opportunity that my wife and I and my family thought that we couldn't pass up. So just jumped on it, and it's been a blast.
Says, Chief, why don't you race Ralph Garr? I said, okay. Said, Ralph Garr wants to race you too. So we started on the first base line on the outfield line. We started, bam, took off running. I beat him by 3 foot.
Mike Fulton-Everett here. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
I'm Kelsey Wingert, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Hey, this is Andrew Jones. You're watching On Deck with Tyler.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. Really do appreciate it. While you're here, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck, and of course with your Atlanta Braves, who just got done sweeping the Milwaukee Brewers. That's always a fun thing to say. Also, it's Hank Aaron weekend, so what a time to show up, what a time to perform, and the Braves, of course, still on a hot roll. I mean, I know they got started slow after the first half, after the All-Star break, but the good news is they still have, I believe, the most wins in Major League Baseball. By far the best record in Major League Baseball. They have an 11.5 game lead in the NL East. And look, it looks like they're not going anywhere. However, there are still some questions. We're going to talk about the trade deadline coming up. Of course, Matt Olson had a big day. Austin Riley continues to thrive. Marcell Ozuna had a big series, a homer in each and every one of the games against the Brewers. So there's a lot to talk about that's good with the Braves. There's a lot to talk about that is questionable with the Braves. I think what I want to talk about, though, first is the new acquisition that Atlanta got today. We'll talk about him first. We'll get into what you guys want to talk about in the comments section as well, so stay tuned for that. We will be here for a little while, probably right around till 9:30. So if you have a question, get it in. Remember, Super Chats do get you priority. They get you first in line. That's the best way to go about it. And, of course, they also support the channel. You can also support the channel by liking the video. That is the best way to support the channel, is liking the video. And, of course, sharing it with your friends. We are growing. We are trying our best to get to 5,000 subs before the end of the season. I think we can do it, but we need your help. So please do like the video, share the video, and of course tell your friends to come sub to Braves on Deck. All right, let's talk about the Braves' newest acquisition, Nicky Lopez. Now, when this move was made, I immediately got on Twitter, and the immediate response was, "Who is this?" So let me tell you. This is his stats on the left. They're not going to knock your socks off. He's got a .210 average, no homers, 4 stolen bases, 322 on base, 280 slug, 603 OPS. He did hit 300 back in 2021, but his BABIP was a 347, so a lot of that was kind of out of his control. Little bit of luck, but he's not necessarily a super great hitter. So why would the Braves get him? Well, it's pretty much one reason and one reason only, and that's because they need depth, and he is a good depth piece. Think about this. If Orlando Arcia were to get hurt, if he were to get hurt at some point this season, you theoretically could have Vaughn Grissom back there unless he gets traded. More on that later. But also, you just need more depth. Any team that is competing needs depth, and the Braves have lacked it really all season. So this is a good depth pickup. The other thing is he has really good defense. He is in the 96th percentile, according to Baseball Savant, with outs above average. So his defense is pretty stellar. So I like this pickup. We didn't lose really anything. We traded left-handed pitcher Taylor Hearn, who we actually acquired the other day from the Rangers. I didn't think that move was exactly huge when we made it. We only traded cash. I didn't think his stats really matched up to what we needed in the pen, especially even though I do think we need left-handed pitching right now, especially in the reliever section. I don't think Taylor Hearn was the answer, and I don't think his absence will be missed, if I'm honest with you. That said, I think this is a good pickup. It's not a huge move. It's not what you guys are wanting at the trade deadline. I'm well aware of that, but I do think this move could pay off in the future. And look, I said he's not, a super great hitter, but anything he does offensively, I think, is kind of gravy. It's in addition to what he does defensively, right? That's what the Braves got him for. It's not to see him hit bombs or anything like that. Don't expect it. You're not going to get it. But I do think this is a good depth addition. That said, I don't believe that the Braves are done. I've said this multiple times. I think the Braves are really going to target left-handed pitching. If you were listening to the broadcast today between the Braves and the Brewers, Jeff Francoeur stated that he thinks the Braves are still going to be active, and he said what I've been saying. The Braves are one of these teams that could probably add on a little bit to their payroll at the deadline if need be. We all know who I think they're going to go get, and it's Josh Hader. If you didn't know that, go check out the video. It is on the channel. I still think that is a possibility. There are others that could happen if that doesn't go through, but I definitely think the Braves are at least in on the conversations when it comes to Josh Hader. They have to be. Now, that said, the Padres don't necessarily have to trade him, right? I mean, just because I think they should be sellers does not necessarily mean that they will be. Now, they're not the only ones like that. There's a few teams. The Cubs right now are flirting with whether or not they're going to be a buyer or a seller, right? And that's really where you have to start when you look at who is going to be traded, is what teams are buyers and sellers. The Cubs are on the fence. The Tigers are on the fence. But there are some that I would say are confirmed sellers, and we're going to talk about them in just a second. But at the end of the day, the Braves are going to be solid come postseason. I think they are built to make it to the postseason. I think once they get there, they could have a luxury of a solid reliever to go to. It would be all the better. So let's talk about who are the sellers. They're, of course, on the left side of your screen there. The White Sox, the Cardinals, the Nationals, the Royals, the Colorado Rockies, and, of course, the Pirates, as well as the New York Mets, which it just gives me joy to say that the Mets are sellers. So let's talk about each and every one of them individually for a second. The Chicago White Sox, we'll start there. They have already traded away Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly, and even more. There is a guy on there that we will talk in depth about, Aaron Bummer, that I think he's drawing interest already from multiple clubs, according to MLB Trade Rumors anyway. He's a guy that I think the Braves could go at. He is a left-handed pitcher. His ERA is not necessarily you're going to look at his ERA and wonder why I'm even promoting this. But his FIP, of course, which is fielding independent pitching, his FIP is a lot better. It's about a 2.2, 2.4 FIP. So Aaron Bummer could be a guy that you bring in. He's also got one of the worst defenses behind him. So that's, of course, not helping his case. So I think Aaron Bummer could be a good pickup for the Braves if they were able to do it. So it's not just, I think Hader is the only move, but I think Hader would be your first choice, right? I think anybody would agree with that. Hader would be your number one choice if you're looking for a lefty reliever. He's got the best ERA in the game. He's been one of the best relievers in the past few years, and really he just brings in some electricity. There is a take that I entertain a little bit of what if you bring Hader in and he doesn't perform, right? His numbers at Truist Park aren't great. I don't think there's any credence to that. I think he's just had a lot of bad luck in Truist Park. He's faced a pretty good team in Truist Park. But no, I think if you put him on the Braves, you have a guy come postseason who you can count on coming out, if not for the 9th, then for the 8th. But I think he will be your closer. And in the postseason, everything is magnified, right? We have a good bullpen right now. I don't know if this stat still stands, but for a while there, they had the 3rd best ERA in baseball, the 1st best in the National League. So we have a pretty good bullpen. We've had a bullpen that now has some injuries. Jesse Chavez, Nick Anderson, A.J. Minter, plus more. So we're a little hurt on that end. I think adding a Josh Hader or an Aaron Bummer could be a good addition. I mean, there's plenty of guys that you could add. The problem, I think, and I've said this multiple times, the problem I think with the Braves right now is that they really need left-handed pitching. Desperately. A.J. Minter is the only one that is on, the Braves right now, and he's hurt. So they really need left-handed pitching. And if you're wondering, Tyler, where did that void come from? Where did the void in left-handed pitching come from? Well, you take into account that Matzik is out this year, and you're counting on him to be one of your guys. That's part of it, but also left-handed pitching is kind of hard to come by anyway. So if the Braves could get 1 or 2 left-handed relievers at the deadline, I would feel more comfortable. But even if they can get one lefty and a solid righty, I'd feel even better. I definitely think that is where their target is. Obviously, they don't need to fix anything on the day-to-day offense, right? We're all well aware of what the offense can and has done. So I don't think you're attacking that. But other than pitching, they really got what they needed, I think, today in Nicky Lopez, and just someone who can come in and handle defense in the infield, middle infield, because he not only could he replace Orlando Arce if Ozzie Albies got hurt. Does that lead me to believe that Vaughn Grissom is more likely to be traded? Not necessarily. I mean, for all we know, Nicky Lopez could be traded, by Tuesday, right? We traded for Taylor Hearn. We paid cash for Taylor Hearn, and we turned it around and traded him to the Royals for Nicky Lopez. There's nothing to say that Nicky Lopez couldn't be included in a trade that gets us a reliever, right? There's nothing to be said that. So does it make it more likely that Vaughn Grissom gets traded? I don't think so. I think the likelihood of Vaughn Grissom being traded kind of handles itself. The guy's been really good in Gwinnett this year, and his value is as high as it's going to be as a prospect. That said, I think he could bring you someone very good that can help the Braves right now. And it's all about the market, right? It's all about who needs what. Is there someone out there that could use Vaughn Grissom right now? Maybe not. Is there someone on a rebuild that could use him in the future? Possibly. And I know anytime I bring up the idea of trading Vaughn Grissom, I'm going to get the folks that say, oh, we cannot trade Vaughn Grissom. That dude is different. He's, sure. But so was William Contreras. And I was a big fan of William Contreras back in the day when he was first coming up as a prospect. I really thought he was one of the future guys. Shea Langoliers, anybody, right? So it's all about what the team needs. It's not necessarily about who is the best player. It's also about how they fit within the team. So it'll be interesting. We'll keep an eye on his case. Other sellers, of course, include the St. Louis Cardinals. No surprise there. They've already traded Jordan Hicks, Jordan Montgomery, and Chris Stratton. There's no one that I'm really looking at in the Cardinals organization, but if there is someone, the Braves will be on it. I've seen rumors that they're possibly going to trade Nolan Arenado. The Braves are not going to be anywhere near that. They have a guy. He hit a homer in the first inning today, Austin Riley. They don't need Nolan Arenado. I don't think they're going to be anywhere near it. But another contender could use him, right? And I don't know who that might be, but if you're picking up Nolan Arenado, that is an improvement to whatever your third base situation is. It just is. Now, that said, it's all about what team really needs a third baseman. Not every team does. So we'll keep an eye on it. The New York Mets, we'll go ahead and jump to them. I can't wait to talk about the New York Mets being sellers. They have already traded David Robertson, which caused an interview scuffle, kind of interesting moment with Max Scherzer after the game the other day, where he was basically asked, like, what does this mean for this year? What does this mean for, where the team goes from here? And he, like I would have been, honestly, didn't know what to say. Basically told the reporter, you need to go talk to the front office. There's going to be a lot of guys that really just need to go talk to the front office. I don't know what to tell you. We're trading our closer away, so that pretty much means we're out of it. And I've seen Mark Hanna. He came out and said, if we wanted to be buyers, we should have played better in the beginning of the season. There's truth to that. So I think ultimately, with the Mets, I definitely think they're selling. I don't know that they would sell to the Braves. I saw someone ask about possibly making a deal with the Mets. I think it's possible, even more so now. They have no chance this year. The guy that I would want, if we're talking about left-handed pitching, which is, again, what I really think the Braves need more than anything, is Brooks Raley. I think that would be the guy. And, if you were to make a deal with the Mets, wouldn't it be, if you're the Mets, wouldn't you trade Brooks Raley, who you have signed for maybe another year after this one? I think that's his contract. Wouldn't you do that to get Vaughn Grissom? I would, because if I'm the Mets and I see all of these guys that the Braves have raised turn into superstars, and then they got this guy named Vaughn Grissom, who is very similar to a lot of the, Austin Riley, Acuna types, in his young career. Wouldn't it be great if I could keep him around for a couple of extra years? I'm not saying this deal's going to happen. I'm really just thinking out loud right now. If I'm the Mets, I think I do that. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. And to be honest with you, I don't know that I necessarily want that to happen. But I definitely think the Mets, the closer we get to Tuesday, if Brooks Raley is still around, I think that you may have a possibility there. But you also have to realize they traded David Robertson to the Marlins. So it's not inconceivable that the Mets and the Braves make a trade. It's not impossible, though improbable, not impossible. And with that said, I want to pause here and talk about the Miami Marlins for a second, because the Miami Marlins are making trades. They are active in the deadline. And if they get better and they make a late season push, though it would be quite the push to make to take the NL East, that could be interesting. I don't think that's what they're really of course, that's a goal, but I don't think that's really where their mindset is. I think it's more so once you get to postseason, right? Because the Marlins, this is their real first chance in quite some time. They had the COVID year, but other than that, they have not made the postseason very often in the past decade. So this is a chance for them to really make a run, and I don't blame them. This is as close, as good of a team as they have been in a 162-game season in quite a long time. So they are making trades with the Mets. They are getting better. Does that mean that they're more of a threat? Sure. And I think it's all the more reason to lock down on your bullpen. So we'll keep an eye on it. But other than that, all we can do is monitor what the Marlins are doing and hope the Braves become more active. The Washington Nationals, why are they sellers, right? All of the guys up here have already pretty much made a trade, except for the Washington Nationals. So why are they up there? Because they're the Washington Nationals. They are the worst record in the NL East. They do have a couple of good pieces that I think they can maximize and get something out of. Mainly Lane Thomas and Jamer Candelario. I think if the Washington Nationals are smart, they would maximize what they could get out of them, maybe get some prospects. It's no secret that they're on the rebuild. I think that's what they ought to do. The Colorado Rockies, they've already traded, of course, Pierce Johnson, who they traded to the Braves. They are linked to trades with the Cubs. They are also fifth in the NL West. They have every reason in the world to trade. That's why they're up there. Now, just because they traded Pierce Johnson does not mean that they are selling necessarily. It's not like Pierce Johnson was absolutely killing it in Colorado. He had a 6 ERA when he came to Atlanta. So it's not like that's their, oh, well, we're giving up on the season. No, they're just last place in their division and no chance at a wild card. That's why they're on this list. But when it comes to the Rockies, I think that they need to kind of see fit where they're at and really need to reevaluate their organization. The way they run things, and I mean this with no disrespect to them, I've just never understood it. You know, a couple of years ago, I believe they let Trevor Story walk and didn't trade him to get any prospects back, and then immediately go out and sign Chris Bryant, which hasn't turned into much. So they confuse me, to be honest with you. They're not the only team like that, but they're one of them. The Pirates we need to talk about. They traded Carlos Santana over the past couple of days to the Brewers. Actually, we faced him today. So they could be sellers. I'm not saying, well, I think they are sellers. That doesn't mean everybody is available. Everybody's going to point to David Bednar, like, oh, let's go get Bednar. I don't think that we need him because mainly he's a righty. We already have a righty closer in Raisel Iglesias. So when I say righty closer, yes, he's our closer. But if you got Hader would jump into that closer role. But you already have an elite right-handed arm in Raisel Iglesias, in my opinion. Could you get better if you got David Bednar? Sure, but I think it would cost you a fortune. So that's my take on the Pirates right now. Other than that, the Kansas City Royals, they have already traded Aroldis Chapman, and of course they just traded with us. They are, of course, sellers. Of course, if you're wondering, if you're just tuning in, they traded Nicky Lopez to the Braves. We talked about that earlier, so if you missed it, catch it on the replay. But no, those are your sellers. Those are, to me, your confirmed sellers. Everyone's been talking about the lack thereof of sellers because it's a more competitive game. Your postseason is expanded. Therefore, you have more chances to make the postseason. Therefore, you have less sellers. So could there be a couple of sneak picks for possible sellers? I believe so. And the first one I kind of hinted at earlier is the Chicago Cubs. The Cubs are interesting. Right now, they are 3 games back of the wild card, 3.5 games out of first. They're right on the edge there to make the decision, right? They're right on the edge of figuring out what they want to do. And what I mean by that is, do we invest in this season, take a chance, make it to the postseason, and see what happens, reinvigorate Wrigleyville, and get that 2016-ish magic back, or do we rebuild and add on to what the foundation we've built here, right? They're very interesting. They could potentially make the late run in the regular season, make the postseason, but to me, what will they be if they get there? What will they be? I don't think they're a team that can really make it through the postseason successfully in any way. I'm not sure that they'd win one series, to be honest with you, based on who they would be competing with. Anything can happen once you make it to October, truly. But again, I just don't think there's enough guarantee there for you not to maximize on your assets. Realistically speaking, the Cubs are a rebuilding team, or at least they should be. They should capitalize on Bellinger and Stroman that they do have. Let's be real, Bellinger and Stroman are not guaranteed to be in Chicago past this season. Of course, Stroman has a player option. Bellinger only signed to the end of the year. If I'm the Cubs, I'm banking on the future. That's me. And that's honestly how the Braves operate. I think that's how the Cubs kind of should operate. I think it's how any team should operate. If you're looking at your team and you think, oh, well, we might make the postseason, I think you should invest in the future, right? Save your chips for when it's the right time to strike. That's how I would run it. But I'm not the Cubs. There are rumors that the Cubs will not go that route. Cody Bellinger is rumored to be off the table as of today. Maybe it pays off come October. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Maybe something changes by 6 p.m. on Tuesday, right? Who knows? Maybe they are buyers. Maybe they're looking at the market saying, hey, if we got this guy, we would really turn into the machine we need to be. I personally look at the Cubs, and I don't think there's enough pieces they could buy to turn their season into being a World Series caliber team. And think about this. With the Cubs, you know, when it comes to the Cubs, what made them successful in 2016? 108 years of not winning a World Series, of barely making any postseason appearances. What made them successful? The farm system. Invest in your farm system. Don't play the free agency route that the Padres and the Yankees and the Dodgers, they all play it, right? The Dodgers, of course, play a mixture of the free agency and the farm system, but no, invest in your farm system. I'll be honest with you. I didn't understand them losing Contreras last year and then signing Dansby. I didn't get it. Dansby's a great player, but why lose the guy who's, you know, kind of your one cornerstone from that 2016 era that you could, in theory, build around to go get a stranger, you know, a guy who could be good, but not your guy, right? Why not build your farm system? Because that was the goal for the Cubs, you know, before this past offseason, was to build up and kind of coup what they did. You know, I mean, almost a decade ago, right? Why not do that? I don't understand it. That's my take on it. That's my rant on the Cubs for today. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Liking the video is the best thing you can do. Remember, Super Chats do get your priority. We're going to talk here in a minute about all of what you guys want to talk about, and when we do that, the Super Chats that are there will be first in line. I do have one more possible seller that I wanted to talk about. The Detroit Tigers. Currently, they are third in the American League Central. One would assume that the Tigers are sellers. It's not guaranteed yet, and they've yet to act on it. Some of the pieces that they do have: Michael Lorenzen, Eduardo Rodriguez, Jose Cisnero, and Chasen Shreve. Not anybody that I'm looking at thinking that the Braves really need to go get, but they do have some pieces that could be moved. And I think if the Tigers, you know, want to, they could. But no, I think this market right now is a seller's market. You know, there's been a lot of action lately. I mean, more so than average, right? Like early on. I'll be honest with you, what the move that really surprised me, not that it was a crazy move to make, but the move that surprised me was Chapman. Again, not because Chapman was traded. I think we all saw that coming. It just surprised me how early it happened, right? Because Chapman, if I were the Royals, I would have sat on that. I would have said, nope, we're going to wait. We're not going to trade him yet. We're going to see what the highest price is come Tuesday. It's good that the market is moving, because that means more trades are likely to happen. More things are likely to move. And the more things that move, the more likely teams get in on it. And Alex Anthopoulos did speak either today or yesterday. I saw the clip earlier about basically the market itself and the way things are going. He says, look, you can't force a trade. You can't make a trade happen. You have to just strike when it's there. And that's what I think we're at right now. My favorite trade idea is still Hader. I'll hang my hat on that if it doesn't happen. I still think that the Braves at least put feelers out. They'd be dumb not to. I just would be surprised if the best lefty reliever on a frankly subpar team right now in the San Diego Padres didn't at least get a phone call from Alex Anthopoulos. I would just be very, very, very surprised. And Alex Anthopoulos, you know, we talk a lot about Alex Anthopoulos on this show, and rightfully so. Alex Anthopoulos has been the guy who every year does the right move, right? Everybody talks about 2021. We followed that live here, the trade deadline that saw us get Eddie Rosario, Jorge Soler, Jock Peterson, you know, all those guys. Alex Anthopoulos was the brains behind it. I'm not saying he was alone, but he was the ultimate guy that made the call. And I think he's still got something up his sleeve for 2023. I would just be very surprised if he didn't. Now, that said, let's talk about what you guys want to talk about, starting with Daniel Fowler. Mainly want to support the channel, but I'll ask a question if... Oh, hang on just a second. How is this? What is wrong? Hang on a second, guys. Something is wrong with my computer. Just crapped out on me. Hang on just a second. All right. Mainly want to support channel, but I'll ask a question. If the Braves got Hader, do you think we would sign him? I don't want to give up Vaughn for half a season. I understand that. And I think that would make it more likely. Obviously, that's kind of what happened with Sean Murphy. I don't know. I'll be honest, I don't know that I even think so. Hader is a little different because Sean Murphy and Matt Olson were still kind of on their early deals. Hader, look, if he got around the Braves, they might be able to convince him. If I'm him, I'd love to come to the Braves and win a couple of rings with them. I definitely think it's possible. And to be honest with you, I definitely could see it happening. I don't know that I would say it's likely, right? Because if I'm Hader and let's just throw out the possibility. If I win the World Series with the Braves and I'm Hader this season, at the end of the year, I've won a ring. I'm kind of good on that, right? I want to get paid. So it's all about really what Hader wants. I don't know really where they'll go, but we'll keep an eye on it. We will keep an eye on it. Other super chats. Hello, Newman. He says, chop on. Thank you for that. Thank you for supporting the channel. One more. Maverick says, Jordan Montgomery has went to the Rangers. I thought Jordan Montgomery would get moved. I just didn't think it would be the Braves. I still don't believe we are targeting starting pitching. That's why I didn't think Jordan Montgomery was going to be an option. I still don't think we're targeting starting pitching. I know that's been a topic of conversation really throughout this whole process of the Braves trade deadline conversation, because everybody knows that the Braves are lacking in that front. And I don't mean that necessarily in quality, but everybody knows that other than Spencer Strider, Charlie Morton, and Bryce Elder, really, we are really limited in our starting pitching, mainly due to the fact that Max Fried and Kyle Wright are currently out right now. Soroka has not been what everyone kind of hoped he would be, and I mean that with no knock on him. It's the fact, right? I mean, we are limited in that front. There's no doubt about it. But at the same token, look at how good the Braves have been without those guys, or without Soroka being who we were hoping him to be. They have the most wins in baseball. So starting pitching is not exactly an issue, I don't think, especially since you're getting Fried back at least in the next few weeks. It's looking like, he's got some kind of sickness that's keeping him from doing a rehab start. I think he gets one more rehab start and then he's back. I'd be surprised if, maybe 2. We'll call it 2, but I would be surprised if it's anywhere further than that. But no, I mean, look at how good they have a .650 win percentage. They've won 65% of their games. I mean, they've been phenomenal without those guys. So no, I don't think starting pitching is what we're doing. I think bullpen is where we need to target, because the Braves, and this is going to sound crazy when I say it, the Braves have pretty much solidified their spot as a contender in the postseason, right? I mean, pending a drastic doomsday fall, they're in the postseason, right? I mean, if they don't win the division, they're still in the wild card. That said, it's once you get there, I think the biggest question is still the postseason. Because if I get in a 5-game series and Strider throws 5 innings of no hit or shutout baseball, we'll call it 6 innings of shutout baseball, I need 3 guys I can turn to, or maybe 2, that will lock it down. That win is ours, right? You have close games, everything is magnified, and the issues become really apparent, right? And the issues don't show up in the numbers all the time. I mentioned earlier that for a long time the Braves had the best ERA in the National League, the 3rd best in baseball. I don't know if that's still the case. I'm sure it's not. But the numbers are probably at least middle of the road and above, right? The ERA, the basic numbers, they're probably in favor of our bullpen. The problem is going to show up in those key moments, right? In the postseason, it does not matter what you did in the regular season. And I think you need a guy who, number one, has postseason experience. Number two, is a guy you can count on. I don't know that we have enough of those guys. I'm not saying we don't have any. I just don't know if we have enough. And I don't think the Jesse Chavezes of the world are the guys that I want to call on come the postseason. We have a lot of great talent. I'm not saying we don't. I just think that we need to evaluate where we are and put that in a postseason perspective, right? Let's say we're in the postseason. The first team we're going up against is, I don't know, the Marlins. We'll just use them as an example. In a 7-game series, right now, I'm pretty confident we'd beat the Marlins. Maybe we make it to the NLCS out of that. But from there, you face who? The Dodgers? Who? Do you really think right now you'd want to face the Dodgers with what we have, right? Pending injuries and all that. I don't think so. And you also have the question of what if all these guys don't come back from the injuries? What if A.J. Minter doesn't come back? You'd be entering the postseason with no lefty reliever. Don't think we want that. So I really think we're going to attack that. I would just be very surprised if we didn't. And look, Josh Hader, as much as I'd like to see that happen, especially since I predicted it, I would love to see it happen. If it doesn't, that's fine. But we need a substitute move that is at least similar to it. And that's what it's not about who we go get, really. It's about what we get. And what I mean by that is I don't care about a name. I don't care if it's a name that I've never heard before. But he's got to have stats. He's got to have enough, I guess, enough of the right things to make it make sense, to fit the criteria. Right now, the number one guy that fits the criteria is Josh Hader. If you can land him, you got to get him. That's my take on it. Charles Pruitt says, "Hi, Tyler. That was a whale of a series." Absolutely. Of course, the Braves did sweep the Brewers, and that's always a good thing to hear. Also on Hank Aaron weekend, they sported the City Connects for that. I thought it was a great series. They won the first game 10-7, second game 11-5, and the third game today 8-6. But it really felt like it the first time we've seen the first half Braves since the All-Star break to me, right? Like we've seen individuals have good games, Olsen, Riley, even though Zuna's had a couple good games here and there. But this series was the first time I felt like, okay, we're back to being one of the hottest teams in baseball, at least offensively speaking. So, no, I think it was a great series, and I think it'll carry into, of course, the next one as we face the Angels. By the way, glad I thought about that. By the way, I will be at the game tomorrow between the Braves and the Angels. So if you do see me, do stop and say hello. That is tomorrow at 7:20 p.m. I will be there. So again, if you see a 5'4" white guy with a comb over, that's me. Say hello, and I'll be glad to take a picture, interact, talk baseball with you, whatever the case may be. So make sure, again, to say hello. Hopefully the Braves can take down Shohei Ohtani and the Angels. Let's see. John says, "Tyler, I don't think we are done making moves." I don't either. I really don't. And I pinned this message earlier. I'm going to unpin it now. But I did pin it earlier because I don't think we're done. I think a lot of people are saying, I don't like these moves. I don't like these moves that AA is making. There's reason for them. Number one, again, depth. I mentioned that earlier when I was talking about Nicky Lopez. But the Taylor Hearn move, the Pierce Johnson move, and I would even say Nicky Lopez maybe. We don't see it from here, but to me, those are just in case moves. They're not, we're counting on this. This is, let's see what he's got. Throw him out there. See if you see something, right? I don't think they're the move, if that makes sense. They're not the last trick up Alex Anthopoulos' sleeve. I'd be very surprised if that were the case. If anything, the Braves used Taylor Hearn to get Nicky Lopez, so if Nicky Lopez turns out to have a great game in the World Series or something, or in the postseason, you can say AA knew what he was doing, right? I don't think, I just don't see this being the end of the road at the trade deadline. I would be very surprised. By the way, speaking of the trade deadline, and I'm glad I got reminded of this, also really want to announce this. Tuesday at 6 p.m. is, of course, the Major League Baseball trade deadline. We will be live for that. I took the day off for it, so you better show up. But we will be live starting at 5:30 where we'll kind of recap what has already happened up until that point. And then from there, we're kind of live reacting nothing may happen, something may happen. If not, we'll have a good baseball conversation. But I think we all expect something to kind of transpire, whether it be Braves related or somebody else, whatever the case may be. But no, do show up for that, and again, plan for it. The trade deadline is always a fun topic to talk about. It's always exciting. We were live during that 2021 trade deadline a few years ago, back when I was still in my parents' house in my old bedroom, and we were using a camera right here on this computer as opposed to the more professional route we have now. But no, we were live for that when Jorge Soler got traded and later, of course, became the World Series MVP. And we didn't know it at the time. We didn't know that was going to be the case at the time. I was excited because it was like boom, 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 right at the end. It was exciting. It was like a football game almost. It was crazy. But I hope to have something similar happen this season. I don't think the Braves necessarily need as much as it happened in 2021. The Braves definitely needed something at that time. Now I think if one big move happened, we'd all be very happy about it. But no, we will be live for that again starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. So do show up for that. And, of course, I hope you're just as excited for the trade deadline as I am. It's one of my favorite times of the year. Trade deadline's like Christmas for Braves fans. Let's see. Georgia Bulldogs rule. Man, I never thought I'd say that. Braves have baseball's best record, but we are not satisfied. No, right? And that's fair because how many teams, Morgan Wallen has a song right now. I don't know if you guys know that, called the 98 Braves. That's about a team that was very, very good, had every predicting measure going in their favor for the World Series, and it didn't happen, right? We're not preparing for the regular season championship. No, we want the World Series, right? So that's my take on it. Oren Griswold says, made the 8-hour drive to Truist for the first time last night, and the atmosphere did not disappoint. It's funny you say that. I have this clip here, and anybody that hasn't been to Truist Park, do understand this is the NLCS. Not every game is like this. Night games are better, by the way. But when the environment is like this for a regular season game, that's when you know your team has got something special. I mean, look at the fans. Look how, just everything about it. When I was there for the Austin Riley walk-off in Game 1, it was more crazier than this because that was the end of the game. We knew we had beaten the Dodgers. We were off to a great start. So this is just one moment in time to kind of go to your point there, Oren. The Braves environment, Truist Park, is wonderful, and I think it's very underrated, to tell you the truth. That said, guys, do remember to like the video. A lot of you guys watching out there that haven't liked the video, please do like it. And, of course, Super Chat does get your priority in the chat. So if you have a question, if you have a comment, whatever the case may be, Super Chats are the way to get it read quickly. Yasuki Knight says, I'm going to the Braves game on September 28th with my family, and I'm excited about it. You should be excited about it. I'm excited about going tomorrow. I got to get up early, but I'm excited about it. Chris Cason says, went back to school shopping for the kiddos, grabbed some groceries for the upcoming week. After the 7th inning stretch, the Bravos won. Great news to cap off the week. Absolutely. Jake Hobby says, I think it's interesting that we traded Taylor Hearn for Nicky Lopez. Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting. It almost makes you wonder, did we know that was the goal, right? Did we know that Taylor Hearn was going to be traded? Because if we did, that's very, very smart, right? It makes me wonder, and this is the conspiracy theorist mind I have, it makes me wonder, did we trade Nicky Lopez to then trade for somebody else? I'm not saying we did. I think it's a great depth piece if nothing else. But I just wouldn't be overly surprised if all of a sudden we trade Nicky Lopez for somebody else. It just wouldn't surprise me. For those of you that are saying it makes no sense, who is this guy? He's a nobody, whatever. It just wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden Nicky Lopez gets traded to somebody for something we actually like. I'm just saying. It's all about, you ever seen those videos where there's a guy that starts out with a quarter or a dime, and he's like, I got to turn this into $100 by the end of the day. You ever seen that? That's what I think they're doing here. They're taking the dime that was Taylor Hearn. They traded for the dollar that is Nicky Lopez. Maybe they could trade that dollar for a $25 bill. That's, I think, the best analogy I can come up for this. And again, if he's just a depth piece, I think it's fine. I don't think it's something that's great. But if it turns into, hey, we essentially bought Taylor Hearn because you only traded cash for him from the Rangers. We then traded Taylor Hearn to the who did we trade him to again? Oh, we traded Taylor Hearn to the Royals for Nicky Lopez, and then we're going to trade Nicky Lopez to the Padres alongside someone else for Josh Hader. I think everybody's going to look at this and go, oh, man, Double-A really knew what he was doing. So I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. It just wouldn't surprise me if something like that did. Charles Pruitt says, I thought A.J. Smith-Shawver, I think that's who you're talking about, had a good outing today. I thought so too. A couple of wild pitches. The wild pitch in the first did cost a run, but no, I think A.J. Smith-Shawver is essentially Ian Anderson in 2020, right? Because Ian Anderson in 2020 was not supposed to be brought up by that point. And he eventually was, and he performed great, really, in the role that we needed him to. And I would even say into 2021. Of course, it didn't age well. But this is a guy who hasn't exactly completed the full stages of development, but is able to come in and fill the need when called upon. And that's all we really need out of him. Richard Davis says, makes 0 sense to get Nicky Lopez. They don't play Culberson or anyone for that matter. So here's the thing. I kind of agree with you, right? I have no defense for that. But do realize, when it comes to not playing Culberson, I have no defense for that because I don't understand that either. Maybe there's something we don't know. But there is less opportunity now, right? You don't have the bench bats. You don't have the ability to call on a pinch hitter. You just don't. It's just not there. So with that, you run into problems playing everybody. And I do think that ultimately this is probably not going to turn into being something huge. But if they can use him to, again, trade him for something else, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Remember, guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and, of course, also do drop a super chat if you want to go ahead and get your thoughts out there. I will read yours first. That's how it works. If you pay me, we put you first in line. Let's see. Oh, a lot of you guys talking in the chat. We're going to skip down a little bit. Let's see. Vision says, I was at the game last night, going Tuesday, excited for McGriff night. Well, Vision, if you get an extra McGriff bobblehead, you know where to send it. I'm just saying. I will be there again tomorrow night. Charles Pruitt, Tyler, do you think Max will be back in the coming week? I do. Well, coming week might be too early, but maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. I think he's definitely on the way back. One more start, and I think he's back. Old Computer, that's a pretty good name, says, bring back Jocktober. We've talked about Jock Peterson a lot on this channel, really around this time every year. Last year we talked about it. This season it's been another appearance. I really like Jock Peterson. I love what he brought to the Braves in 2021, the energy, everything, the pearls, all of it, right? All of the pomp and circumstance. But I really don't think he fits, right? I mean, number one, you have Eddie Rosario in left. You're not going to sit him, I don't think. He's been pretty good this year. He's been much better than he was last year. Last year, I thought it was more of a possibility. It's like the same folks that say bring back Jorge Soler. My response to that is, unless you trade Marcell Ozuna, that's not going to happen. So, to me, I just don't see a spot for it. He was great when we needed him. I think he's a great player. It stinks to see him in another uniform in a way. I get it. But I also don't think Jock Peterson is necessarily the right move. Georgia Bulldog says, AA, I believe, is basically satisfied with the lineup we have now. Yeah, no doubt about it, right? I mean, the lineup is far from the issue. You have so many guys that perform on a regular basis. I don't think you can really look at the lineup and say, yeah, that's the issue, right? You have the most homers hit in the first half in history. I mean, what else could you really ask for in that regard? When you have that, there's nothing else you can really get out of this offense, right? And a lot of folks don't know this, or at least don't think about it on a regular basis, but Alex Anthopoulos is a former economics major. So the way he thinks, if you ever took economics at school, think about it that way, right? Supply and demand. Basic economic principle, supply and demand. If you have a supply of a really good offense, you don't need more offense. It's that simple. You just don't need more offense. That said, if you look at your bullpen and there's a demand for bullpen, you need some supply, right? So that's my lesson to you guys today. I appreciate that. Tyler Granger says we need to make a big move. I disagree. I don't think we need to make a big move. At least we don't need to make a lot of big moves. I don't think it's going to be as grandiose of a trade deadline as it was in 2021. I think you're going to see one move maybe that's big, and that's Josh Hader. If it's not Josh Hader, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I want it when it comes to big moves. If it's not Josh Hader, I think you see multiple smaller name relievers, right? Aaron Bummer, maybe Brooks Raley, right, from the Mets, if you can make that happen. So, but no, I mean, the real key for the Padres in this trade, what they want, number one, is to get rid of some of the salary, right? So maybe the Braves can pay a little bit more than what they would have paid, For example, right now they probably owe him $5 to $6 million based on how much he has left for the year, because I think he's making 14. We're past the halfway point by a lot. You'd probably owe him $5 to $6 million. But if you offer to pay $7-8 million of that, maybe you get him, you just take some of the salary off essentially for the Padres, because they are expending an exorbitant amount of cash right now. They have the third biggest payroll in baseball. They probably want some of the expendable off of it, but they're also not necessarily not competing. So it's tough with the Padres. But beyond that's what they would want. They would also want a couple of prospects. I think if you threw in Vaughn Grissom and you offered to pay the majority of Josh Hader's contract, if I'm the Padres, I make that deal. Maybe I ask for a lower level pitching prospect with it. Maybe I ask for a Nicky Lopez, whatever the case may be. But if I'm the Padres, I'm definitely making that move. I would be dumb not to, because not only am I saving some money that I'm not going to, what is having Josh Hader going to do for a team that's not in the postseason, right? And the Padres right now don't seem like they're exactly headed to the postseason. So that's my take on it. But, not every owner is smart, so we will see. Captain Spartan says Mets are trying to be us trading for Acuna's little brother. Is it true? And I really don't know this. Of course, y'all know I follow Frank the Tank. Absolutely love Frank the Tank. Makes my heart smile watching Frank the Tank videos. If you don't know who I'm talking about, just Google him. You'll Frank the Tank. You will be happy. Anyway, most of you I know who I'm talking about. I saw he did a video yesterday saying that Acuna's little brother was already demanding a trade. I don't know if that's, fact or not, but if so, man, that's great. I doubt that it's real, but just wanted to mention that. Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting that they traded for Acuna's little brother, but I got to tell you, I'm not surprised that Scherzer wanted out of there. Again, if you haven't seen the clip of Scherzer after the game the other day when he was asked about the future of the Mets this season, it's pretty telling. It's pretty interesting what he said and what he got across. It's really... When I watched it, it was before we knew he was getting traded. I was like, man, I'm glad I'm not a Mets fan, because it must absolutely stink right now. Not to mention you're down in the standings by 18 games on the dot, by the way. Not to mention that, but now your starting pitcher's like, well, yeah, season's pretty much over. You traded our closer away. What do you want us to do? That's pretty telling. But from there, there's a lot, right? The trade deadline always has a lot to digest, dig through, and it can go a million different directions. But I'm not surprised that the Mets traded him away, and I'm not surprised that he was all for it because he had to lift his trade clause, and he did. Brandon Edwards, do you think this opens up the door for Grissom or Shoemake getting traded? I think we kind of hit on this, and this is, of course, I believe, circling the Nicky Lopez pickup. I definitely think I don't think it's how do I put this? I don't think it's necessarily going to cause Vaughn Grissom to be traded. I do think his defense is the reason we got him, and that is, of course, what Vaughn Grissom is lacking. But being that you already have Vaughn Grissom and Braden Shoemake, you can't keep both of them. One of them needs to be traded. Vaughn Grissom has more, I would say, value right now. And I think if you kept Shoemake, you'd still have your depth there. But I don't think Nicky Lopez is enough to say, okay, well, we got somebody. We don't need Vaughn Grissom. No, I think having Nicky Lopez in addition to Orlando Arcia, in addition to Braden Shoemake, in addition to Vaughn Grissom means one of those guys is getting sent out of there. I just don't see how it goes another way. I mean, that's what you have a surplus in right now is middle infielders, right? I mean, you have Orlando, who's an all-star this year. I don't think he's necessarily going to be an all-star every year, but he's definitely good enough to keep it moving, right? And then you have Vaughn Grissom, who's the up-and-coming prospect, who has a lot of value right now and could be traded. You have Braden Shoemake, who's another up-and-coming prospect, arguably should have been ahead of Vaughn Grissom in terms of when they arrived to Major League Baseball. If he wasn't hurt, that would have been the case. So it's tough, right? I mean, you've essentially showcased Grissom. You've kind of showcased Shoemake. I think, you could elect to keep him. The Braves have done that for years. They've elected to keep, the guys that they have, the Austin Rileys of the world, the Acuñas, they've always kept them. Michael Harris. There was a time where a few years ago that a lot of folks thought Michael Harris might be traded. I did a video on it, believe it or not. Glad that didn't happen. But basically what I'm saying is it could go either way. It could go the way that the Braves have historically done it, where the Braves have just decided, no, we're going to sit on what we have. We're going to trust in the future. Or it could go, well, no, we're pretty good. We're going to be good for a long time, even if we trade you or not, and we're going to get a reliever back. So we'll see. But we'll see. Georgia Bulldog says, I believe Shohei and the Angels are next up on the Braves' death list. I call it. I hope so. I don't want to go there and, make it cold up there. But again, at the series tomorrow, I will be there. Make sure to show up. Let's see. Tyler Granger says, when do you think we make a move? So not if we'll make a move. When do you think we'll make a move? Well, we made a move today, if that's what you mean. But no, I know what you mean. You mean a big move. When are we going to make a big move? If something happens that is enough to really cause interest in what the Braves are doing, it's going to be closer to Tuesday at 6. That's what you could expect. I'm not saying it's going to be at 6, but just remember, I believe Richard Rodriguez, if I'm not mistaken, the same year I'm talking about Jorge Soler, that season, Richard Rodriguez was kind of after 6. It was after the deadline. It was like 30 minutes after the deadline. It was like it had just made it through, like at 5:58, had to be processed. So a lot of times you don't hear about it till afterward. And that's because a lot of teams are like, all right, we got to get rid of this guy. We got to get something for him. Go, right? And so sometimes moves can happen that way. So we'll see. Richard Davis says, if we can't get a number one starter or reliever, we really don't need anything else. We will be fine barring any more injuries. Wright, Fried, Minter, Lee should be back and hopefully healthy and rested. I don't disagree with you, especially when it comes to starting pitching. But when you talk about Minter and Lee, there is truth to that. Dylan Lee is one that I think tends to be forgotten about, even on my end. He's a guy who's quality. You pull him out there. He's always, for the most part, got good innings. But you're counting a lot on what we don't currently have. It's not a bad thing. You do have these guys locked up, but you're pinning them not only coming back from injury and being healthy, but being the guy that they were when they left or better, right? Mentor didn't exactly start off 2023 in a great fashion, and he would tell you that. It's not just me saying it, it's the numbers say it. So you're hoping he comes back and he's 2021, 2022 Mentor, and I don't know that that's a guarantee coming off of injury. So it's just something to keep in mind. Smith the Great says, seeing a lot of Grissom to Giants. I know it won't happen, but Kyle Harrison would be a dream. Well, here's the thing. Anytime you have guys that are putting out articles or whatever, unless it's Ken Rosenthal or Mark Bowman or On Deck with Tyler Redmond, I'm just kidding. Unless it's somebody like that, don't take them at their word, right? So you might hear that, oh, so-and-so's talking to so-and-so. I haven't seen the particular article you're talking about, to tell you the truth. I genuinely have not. But Kyle Harrison, he's a starter, he's a lefty. I think it could be a good pickup, but I don't know that that's necessarily where they're going to go. If I'm going to trade with the Giants, I really want a reliever. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a good pickup. I just doubt they would trade him, to tell you the truth. But we'll see. We'll see. I'm going to relate this to what we saw a lot of last week, and that was the Braves are going to trade for Adam Duvall and the Red Sox, right? Why? Why would they do that? Where are they going to put him? Where would they put Adam Duvall right now, right? And just because someone puts it out there doesn't mean the Braves might say, hey, we're kind of interested in Duvall, but that doesn't mean, hey, we're offering you this for Duvall, right? It's different. Plus, rumors are just rumors, right? And I had somebody comment the other day. I did on my hater video, actually. It was basically saying, hey, you're putting out false information. And here's the difference. And I'm actually going to go on kind of a rant about this. My hater video, I did not tell you that, and this is what I want you to look for, that's why I'm telling you. I did not tell you that I'm hearing this. I have sources. I have inside knowledge. I didn't tell you any of that. I told you the Braves need this. We have this to offer. This makes sense, right? It's my opinion. It's not me saying I'm hearing stuff. A lot of these articles are clickbait, and they say we have sources, and you go, who's your source? And they tell you the guy at the Burger King drive-thru told him, right? So it's not always something to count on. And I do my best to not give you false, information. The whole hater thing, I'll tell you up front, was all up here. It came from my own research and my own opinion. If I was the Braves, I would do this. There's a difference there. So anytime you see the Braves are interested in Adam Duvall, put it out there. It's simply to get you to click on it. And I do my best to not even read a lot of that because a lot of the time I don't want to contribute to it. So I'm cautious with what I do. If it's, again, not from someone official or at least someone that I have prior knowledge of, I typically don't look at it. Again, I do my best to not, really indulge in that stuff. I try to not give you clickbait at least all the time, to tell you the truth. I do my best to not do that because I want you to come back. I want you to trust my opinion, right? If hater doesn't happen, let's just say that. Let's just put it out there. Let's 50-50. Let's just say it doesn't happen. Honestly, it's more likely that it doesn't happen in a lot of ways. Let's say that doesn't happen. I have no problem with standing by that opinion because I have full belief that the Braves either did put feelers out or should have put feelers out. That's all my own research and my own, prior knowledge. But a lot of those that just put out our sources are saying this, and they don't list who their source is, don't buy into it. That's my take on that. Mark Scheimer, thoughts on Carlos Hernandez? All right, let's look that up. Carlos Hernandez, baseball pitcher. I would have never guessed. All right. According to Baseball Reference, throws right, bats right. He's got a 3.63 ERA. He's with the Royals currently. Look, the Royals are sellers. Is he a reliever? Is that? I'll be honest with you, I'm uneducated when it comes to this guy. I'm going to assume, yeah, I think he's a reliever because he's appeared in 45 games and he's only started 4 of them. So yeah, the Royals are struggling. He's got a 3.63 ERA. His whip's good. Strikeout per walk is good. His strikeouts per 9 are good. His walk rate is down. He's a good reliever, but he is right-handed. I think if you got him and a good lefty, that could be a solution. I'm not against that at all. But, we'll see. Old computer said I don't trust a guy with the last name Bummer. Look, anytime you see a pitcher with one of those names, Bob Walk comes to mind. Again, Bob Walk. I understand. I try to look at the other numbers and the actual research, but I can understand not wanting a guy that has Bummer on the back of his name. My brother has been preaching Aaron Bummer at me for weeks. In fact, yesterday he sent me an article. I told him I'd put him in this video, so if it happens, we were first on it. But he sent me this article, of course, Rumor, 358 Baseball, who actually do use for updates sometimes. This is per John Morosi. White Sox reliever Aaron Bummer is reportedly drawing interest from quote-unquote multiple contenders. And he made sure to send me this a week after he told me about it. So, if it happens, Jacob Redmond had it first. We'll see. We will see. Who'd you ask about? Sneaky, this is from Panthers. Sneaky Braves option, Sam Long of Oakland. Look at his stats. All right, I have his stats. He's a reliever. He's a lefty. 4.93 ERA, 27 strikeouts through 38 innings. Strikeouts per 9 is kind of low. He doesn't allow a lot of homers, but he also pitches in Oakland. Strikeout per walk, not great. I don't know. I mean, it's a okay pickup, but I don't know that it's one that I'm like, yep, that's what we need right there, right? I think it's a get by move. I think what you said is pretty accurate, a sneaky Braves option, but I think you'd have to develop him further. And that's just me looking at his basic stats, not even looking at his contract. But if I'm Oakland, I'm not trading him because I'm cheap, number one. That's Oakland. And also, he's not a free agent until 2028. I'm keeping him as long as I can and maximizing his value at the end, not now. So I don't think that happens. Let's see. Yeah, Hernandez from Kansas City could be an option as a plan B or C. I don't disagree with that. I think that's kind of where I'm at on it, right? Like if Hader's not available, that's something to go to. And again, I'm not against that at all. A couple more super chats. Juicy Diamond Gaming, please check in on Verlander. You want to check in on Verlander. Here's the thing about that. You're going to have to pay him way too much for what he is. I'm just being honest. I can understand why the Rangers are doing it, but the Braves have a lot more options than the Rangers do. The Rangers are kind of an upstart in a way. They've done the right things if they're going to do that, but they're not where the Braves are. The Braves have been building this machine for years. I can understand why the Rangers would go get Verlander. If I'm any other team, just about, maybe the Cubs, if they wanted to go all in, other than that, I don't see why a team would, save the Mets from this turmoil that they've gotten themselves in. But if you want me to look at his stats real quick, I will. Mainly since you paid for a super chat, I'll give you the best I got. Of course, he would be brought in as a starting pitcher. You don't need to know his resume. He's got an MVP, Rookie of the Year, 9-time All-Star, 2-time ERA. None of that matters anymore with Justin Verlander. He's not a free agent until 2025, so he's got a whole nother year on his deal. So does Scherzer. So Texas is going to have to pay Scherzer not only for the remainder of this year, but also next. So will the Braves. They'll have to split up the $86 million or whatever else he's owed for the next 2 years. I don't see it happening. He does got a 3.24 ERA, not bad. He's 5-5, which is mainly due to the Mets, not him. I think Verlander still got something to offer. I just don't think it fits in with the Braves system, to tell you the truth. I just don't. Jonathan Roberson, you gave me a super chat, buddy, but I don't see a message. So if you got a question for me, you got my number. Just text me. Other than that, if any more super chats want to be asked, go ahead and put them in. We are going to be here another 30 minutes or so, maybe 40 if I'm feeling it. But remember, super chats do get your priority. That's why I just answered that question a second ago. But other than that, you just need to put in a comment. I'll get to it. Remember, also, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. It really helps get the stream out there, really helps the channel grow, and please do subscribe if you have not already. I think most of you probably have by now. Let's see. William Carr asks a pretty good question. What would A.J. Smith-Shawver yield in a trade? I think if the Padres didn't want Vaughn Grissom, you could trade A.J. Smith-Shawver and get Josh Hader. I do think that. I'll put it that way. That's the best way I can put it. Matthew, Tyler, do you think the Braves acquired Lopez because they might trade Grissom? Grissom is the one player I hope they don't trade. He's hitting over 320 in AAA, and he should play left in 2024. Well, it's really about how the Braves view it, not us, right? So you may view him as playing left in 2024. I presented that idea a couple of years ago, if you remember. I'm not against that. If they don't trade him, I think that's likely going to happen because otherwise you'd have to sign Eddie Rosario to another deal. I don't know that happens. He had one good year so far, one kind of rough year. If he has a great postseason, maybe all is forgiven for that 1 year. Who knows? When it comes to trading Grissom, it's all about this season, right? And I mean that. I'm not saying I'm not considering what he could be in the future, but listen to me. If they trade Grissom, it is for this season. It's not considering next because World Series opportunities don't come around very often. Now, that said, Alex Anthopoulos has been quoted as saying, my goal is to not win one World Series. My goal is to have a chance at multiple, to get to the postseason for a long amount of time. That's what he wants to do, because the more times you get to the postseason, the more chances you have at winning it all. So it's up in the air, I think, right now. It's really up in the air when it comes to what they will do surrounding Vaughn Grissom. Do I think he's traded? It's not a gimme. I think he's the reason that I include him in all my examples, and I know I do that, and that's honestly probably not fair, but the real reason that I do that is because he's the prospect that everybody knows. He's the prospect that everybody has a measuring stick of who he is and what kind of value. I think A.J. Smith-Shawver could fetch you a very similar thing. The only thing about trading A.J. Smith-Shawver is there may come a day where you have to replace a Max Fried. And I'm not saying A.J. Smith-Shawver is Max Fried. I'm just saying you're going to need somebody, and he may be the guy. And that's only in 2025. So just keep that in mind. I would much rather lose Vaughn Grissom and his bat right now amidst this historic offense that the Braves have rather than losing A.J. Smith-Shawver and his future numbers, right? That's the way you got to look at it. Let's see. Any timetable on Kyle Wright? That's Newman. Hello, Newman. Basically, what I'm hearing is he's hoping to be back by September. What that means, I don't know. That may play into some decisions that, the Braves make. That is all what Kyle Wright is saying, is he's hoping to be back by September. I think that's possible. What he is when he gets back, who knows? But I definitely think it's possible. On the go with CeeLo tunes in. What's going on, buddy? Let's see. Matthew, Tyler, are you as shocked as me that the Mets got Acuna's younger brother for Scherzer? I think the Mets did really well in that deal. Scherzer is 40, and his ERA is over 4, and he's only got 1 year left. He's only got 1 year left on his deal. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's done. Here's the thing. When it comes to Scherzer, the way I view it, yes, he's 40, but if I don't have to pay him $43 million, he's a good pickup. He's a good he's a Charlie Morton, right? And the Rangers are not paying him the totality of his contract going forward. That's not how this is going. The Mets are still forking a lot of the bill. So they're saving some money by trading him, but they're still paying a good, I think, over half of what he's owed. So don't think that that the Mets are just being, or the Rangers are being stupid here. They traded Luis Angel Acuna. Look, just because he's Acuna's brother does not mean he's a future superstar. Not saying he couldn't be. I'm just saying I don't think that's a given. I don't know who's going to win this deal. You know, if the Rangers somehow win a World Series this year or next with Scherzer, you know, you could argue they won the deal, even if Luis Angel Acuna does turn out to be something special. So it's always tough. Like when people say who won the deal, it's like, well, you're going to have to wait about 5 years before you can really discuss that. You know, it's interesting. Like the Freddie Freeman, Matt Olson, who won the trade? Who won the deal? Who won there? The Dodgers or the Braves? We'll see. You know, neither one of them have won a World Series yet with those two guys, so we'll see. Let's see. A lot of you guys active tonight. Mark Narmore says, Ozuna shut us all up. Yep, he sure did. He dang sure shut me up. Is there a tweet out there? If there's a tweet out there, I need to know about it. Somebody super chat and let me know. Matthew says, Tyler, why do the Braves keep forcing Grissom to play shortstop when his defense is bad? We already have Arcia and Shoemake. We don't need a shortstop. Rosario and Pilar are gone next season. We need a left fielder. Put him there. Maybe they have experimented with it. You know, not everything we see is or not everything that they do is something that we see. You know, maybe they are experimenting with it. Maybe it didn't work. You know, maybe they've talked to Hill, but he says, I don't feel comfortable. There's a million reasons. Do I think they should experiment? Yes. But, you know, it's not necessarily, you know, a given there. Newman says, who's your favorite starting pitching prospect so far and any young bats in the minors making a name? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't keep up with the minors like I used to because the farm system right now for the Braves just isn't what it used to be. I mean, all the guys are kind of up now, right? That's why we are so good. That said, I do have a couple favorite starting pitching prospects. Cole is one of mine. If you haven't seen my interview with all of those guys, you need to go check them out. Owen Murphy, J.R. Ritchie, Cole Phillips. Those guys were all first, second round picks a couple of years ago. They were nice enough to all do interviews with me over this past season, so make sure to go check it out. Those are on the channel. I'm looking at where they are. You can find them, I know, in a playlist on the channel, but no, you can get to know them. So I think that's actually quality content. Cole Phillips is one of my favorites there. You know, I reached out to a lot of prospects over the years about doing interviews the moments they got drafted, and I got one response, and it was from Cole Phillips. So I always really liked him. I just think he's a good dude. That said, any other minor league bats making a name? I don't know of any real bats that are just on fire. You know, when you say making a name, I always think about like the Acuna hype and the Austin Riley hype. I don't think anybody's there. I definitely think, you know, you're going to have some pitching prospects in a couple of years that you're excited about. No doubt about that. Let's see. Remember, Super Chats are the way to get to the front of the line. We are not going to be here too much longer, maybe another 20, 30 minutes, so be aware of that. Get your Super Chats in, and, of course, get your comments in as well. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck. Matthew says, Tyler, are you excited about the Braves drafting Thurston Waldrop? He was never supposed to fall to us in the draft. Everyone says he's a steal. A lot of people say he's one of the best two pitchers in the draft. Well, anytime you draft somebody like that, you're excited about it, right? But it's also important to remember that just because someone's drafted doesn't necessarily mean they turn into being a superstar. I'm excited about Thurston Waldrop, not questioning him at all. But remember, back in 1990-ish, 89 maybe, there was a guy named Todd Van Poppel that was supposed to be the number one pick, and the Braves were going to get him. And he basically said, if I get drafted by the Braves, I'm not signing. And they later picked Chipper Jones. Does anybody know who Todd Van Poppel is? No. A lot of folks are drafted. Only a few become superstars. So just keep that in mind. I am excited. Again, I'm not questioning who this guy's going to be. But also, a lot of it is what he does from here. I am very excited, but I want to see what he does. Let's see. Miguel says the Braves won't go anywhere with this bullpen. You know, Miguel, this is why you subscribe right here. I like that. Let's see. Any updates on Fried? According to Jake Hobby, he went 4 and 1/3 yesterday. Sutton Tillery, do you think Braves keep both Lopez and Culberson on the roster? Well, they've yet to put Lopez on the roster. Just saying. I don't think they ever put Taylor Hearn on the roster. So my point is, that's why I'm kind of suggesting that it may be a trade situation. So we'll see. Miguel says, hey, Tyler, I heard that the San Francisco Giants are interested in Grissom, but if I'm AA, I would not trade him. He's going to have more value for playoff games. The majority of the Braves hitters swing for the fence. I agree with you in some way, but it depends what I'm being offered from the Giants. I'm not saying Jock Peterson, but if they have a solid reliever, maybe. There's two sides to the coin, offense and defense, and you're going to need some good pitching too. I don't know. I mean, the Giants are kind of buyers. It'd have to be a mutually beneficial trade. I don't know. Brandon Edwards says, MLB Network, John Morosi says the Braves are targeting starting pitching. We'll see. I don't know about that, but we will see. Let me know whatever is said. I'm not watching MLB Network currently, but I don't think I just don't see them needing it. If they got it, it'd be like, okay, well, good. We got some extra starting pitching, but I don't know that they need it. Oren Griswold says, I think the Braves should experiment with Harris in a 2-hole behind Acuna for a month. Oh, hang on just a second. Of August, and let Ozzie go back to the 6-hole where there's not as much pressure on him. Well, here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about that, Oren. I want you to look at this Braves offense and try to pick apart the problems, right? I don't want to mess with it at all, to tell you the truth. Whatever they're doing right. I just want to leave it alone. All right, I think we're running out of comments, and I think with that, what I'm going to do is kind of circle back to what we were talking about earlier and just kind of recap it. If there's any last-second comments, I'll address them, and then we're going to get out of here. By the way, this is for those of you that have not tuned in until now. Maybe you're tuning in late. The Braves did acquire a infielder, Nicky Lopez. Nicky Lopez's offensive stats do not necessarily jump off the page. A .210 average, 0 homers, 4 stolen bases, .322 on-base percentage, .280 slug, .603 OPS. He did hit .300 in 2021. But his real claim to fame, the reason I think the Braves went and got him, is that he is in the 96th percentile of outs above average, which basically means he's got really good defensive numbers. Okay, he is a guy that you can count on to put in late in the game for defense, come the postseason if necessary, or you could possibly trade him. We've also talked extensively tonight about who are sellers. These are the teams that I think are the sellers. The Chicago White Sox, St. Louis Cardinals, Washington Nationals, Kansas City Royals, Colorado Rockies, Pittsburgh Pirates, and the New York Mets. Those are the teams that I think are confirmed sellers. Most of them have already made trades to kind of solidify their spot on that list. There are a couple of teams that are still on the brink of are they traded or are they not, right? Notice the Padres are not up here. They have not necessarily become sellers yet. They could. By Tuesday, they could decide we're going to be active and we're going to trade who's expendable and that kind of thing. They're not up here yet. So we will see. I think there are some pieces that these teams could move. The Mets have a guy named Brooks Raley who I think could move. But it's not a given. And, it's even less of a given that they're going to trade with Atlanta. So, we'll see what happens there. The White Sox have traded a lot of players. Lance Lynn, Lucas Giolito, Kendall Graveman, Joe Kelly, I think even a couple more. Cardinals have traded Jordan Montgomery. I mean, they've traded pretty much anybody they could. The Nationals have yet to trade anybody, but they're going to trade some folks. Kansas City had traded Aroldis Chapman. I think there's more to come from there. I think they're definitely sellers. The Colorado Rockies, I think, will be sellers before it's all said and done. The Pirates, of course, traded Carlos Santana to the Brewers. So they are sellers as well. We already talked about the Mets, but no, I think there are definitely some teams that will be added to this list right here. I think ultimately the Chicago Cubs might be, or at least they should be, but who knows? Their ownership may make them not be. We'll see. Bars, by the way. Lastly, the Detroit Tigers, I think, are another team that could be added to this list. They're not competing this year. They do have a lot of young talent. I think they could trade away some expendable pieces and add on to who's around in their future, but we will see. Let's see. Is C.J. Cron to the Angels official, Nicholas Miller? I'm calling you out. C.J. Cron to the Angels? C.J. Cron to the Angels. Let's see. I don't know if I have anything. I have nothing as of late. I need to know a source if you can give me one. Sorry, guys. We're going to interrupt this because if this is live, I really would like to react to it. Nicholas Miller, I need a source. Give me a source. Is it on Twitter? I'm trusting you, Nicholas. Jeff Passan. All right, let me check Twitter. I'm interrupting my broadcast, so this better be real. I don't need any fake Twitter things in there. Let's see. Jeff Passan. Yep, all right, 2 minutes ago, the Los Angeles Angels are finalizing a deal to acquire outfielder Randall Grichuk. You forgot about him, and first baseman C.J. Cron from the Colorado Rockies, sources tell ESPN. 2 minor league pitchers that I believed they already were, so just keep that in mind. The Angels are definitely going in. I know we probably just had a bit of an interruption there. If we had an interruption, I'm sorry. Can't control that. Wi-Fi is glitchy sometimes. Can't really control it, but hopefully we're back on. Please let me know if we're back on. Someone, but I'm going to keep talking as if we are. The Angels are definitely going in. They've decided that a few weeks ago, which I'll be honest with you, I thought was stupid. I still think it's stupid. But you have some stupid people with some stupid money sometimes, so things happen that way. They have a very good, all right, we're here. They have a very good, they got pieces. There's no doubt about that. Adding C.J. Cron is pretty interesting. Outfielder Randall Grichuk, I think, is a kind of a filler piece for Trout, similar to how, not that he'll compete there, but similar to how Jock Peterson filled in for Acuna back in 2021. It's pretty interesting. Look, the Angels are going for it. They were a team that probably should have been sellers, but are now buyers. So, it is what it is. But again, C.J. Cron and Randall Grichuk are now with the Angels. So pretty interesting. Just like that, the Rockies are officially sellers. If they were not before, they are now. Let's see. Newman says, would absolutely love to check in on Lane Thomas with the Nationals. I would too. If you don't know, Lane Thomas, I believe, was with the Braves a few years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Guy was fast. I mean, that's what I remember about him. He was a pretty good hitter, but he was fast. That's truly what I remember. Sutton Tillery says Braves reportedly checked in with Mets for Verlander. Okay, I want a source, because if that's true, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself, because I just don't think that's possible. I just don't. Yeah, according to Bleacher Report. Let's read the article, why don't we? Thank you for that, Sutton. This is interesting. Francisco Rosa. I guess, maybe they do feel like they could use a starting pitcher. Maybe. I think if they walk out with Brooks Raley, they're in better shape. With less than 48, this is from Bleacher Report. Article is Francisco Rosa as of July 30th, 2023, so today. With less than 48 hours to go before the MLB trade deadline on August 1st, the World Series favorite Atlanta Braves are looking to add just a couple more pieces to put them over the top. And as they target a starting pitcher, the organization did their due diligence by checking in on New York Mets superstar Justin Verlander. This is also according to MLB Network's John Morosi. However, it seems like the two division rivals have not been in active trade discussions thus far over the 40-year-old right-hander. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I guess it's tough to know how much of that is true, to tell you the truth. I mean, I know it's John Morosi. I get all that. I just don't know. It's just tough. It's tough to know. It's just genuinely tough to know what's real and what's not, right? Because you can put feelers out without really putting feelers out. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're trying to start a conversation. Who knows? Who genuinely knows? Very interesting. If that happens, it'll catch me by surprise. Matthew, Anthony says, Tyler, I'm surprised we didn't try to get some of those White Sox arms. What's your take? All right. Well, I don't know if I could pick each and every one of these apart. I had no interest in Lance Lynn. I just didn't think the numbers were there. Also, I didn't think at that point we needed a starting pitcher as bad as a lot of people were letting on. Again, I could be wrong at some point or another, but I just didn't believe that. When it comes to Lucas Giolito, I mean, again, just didn't really see it. Could the Braves have been a little closer in the conversations than we heard? Possibly. But you're talking about mainly right-handed pitchers here. Kendall Graveman, I got asked about by someone in one of these live streams, and I pretty much stated what I thought about it. It was basically that I didn't see how that benefited the Braves because, again, I really think we need left-handed pitching, at least when it comes to bullpen. That's where I think we're missing the boat right now. And it could be that we turn it around and get something else. Kendall Graveman's obviously a good arm, but I really think it's all about the right-handed pitching. I just didn't think it was a priority. But that was me. Let's see what we got here. Master MJ911 says, what are realistic trade options at this point for Braves? Jack Flaherty, Paul Sewald. Josh Hader. I will stick by it. Josh Hader. I'm with you, Chris Kaysen. Kind of feels like fill-in trade talk. I just don't see us going to get Verlander. I just would be thoroughly surprised if we actually landed him, but number two, actually forked up the cash to get him. I don't see it happening. I don't necessarily mind them checking in, especially after the Scherzer deal happened, and the Rangers aren't forking up a huge bill for him. Verlander's got better numbers, but, we'll see. Matthew Brittingham says, Tyler, do you know what Taylor Hearn's permanent ERA as a Brave is? It's 108. 4 earned runs and only 1 out recorded. Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, he had a chance. They gave him an opportunity to make a push to maybe, showcase him even, but just wasn't meant to be. I hate that's his ERA, but it is what it is. Guys, with that, we are going to wrap it up. Keep an eye on the trade deadline because a lot is, of course, happening all around us. Things are going on. I still think, official that it is official that C.J. Cron and Randall Grichuk are going. So things are going on, no doubt about it. Even now, we're a little less than 2 days away from the actual trade deadline, and we're still having things come through. Deals happen regularly. I think this is going to be a very active trade deadline, not only for the Braves, which, we'll see where that goes, but just really for all of Major League Baseball. I think it's going to be very active. Just would be surprised if it wasn't. It's already been pretty active, and I think it's only going to be enhanced as time goes on. That said, we are going to wrap it up with that. Remember, guys, like the video on your way out. Please do that. Also, subscribe to the channel if you have not already. We're so close to 5,000 subs. Really want to get there sooner rather than later. Prior to the postseason would be great, and only you can help with that. please do that. And of course, keep watching our videos, share this with a friend, all that good stuff. And don't forget, Tuesday night, 6 p.m., Trade Deadline live broadcast. You're not going to want to miss it. I took the day off for it, so I'm holding you to it. Be there, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We will watch the trade deadline as it unfolds. And if anything happens, great. If nothing happens, we'll still have a great baseball conversation about why it didn't happen. So we will talk about that. Remember, again, to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.
Chipper Jones went to the Hall of Fame this past year. Like I said, Hall of Famers feels like every year for the past 5 or 6 years. You got a couple more on the ballot that were teammates of yours, not just on the Braves. You have Barry Bonds as well. Who would you like to see go in this year while the voting's going on?
Man, I tell you, two guys that probably some of the best players, hitters I played with, and probably the best player I've ever seen play the game was with Barry.
Yeah.
I mean, whether he did steroids or not, before, after, or whatever, I personally can't. I don't know. I wasn't there, but that dude could hit. He was the most feared hitter in the game. I think best hitter all time ever. I played with him my last year when I think he was 40, and I mean, just lightning's hands, great eye. And Fred McGriff, again, Fred McGriff was one of the most feared hitters in the game for 10, 15 years or whatever it was, the whole time he was playing. And a lot of home runs, a lot of just a great at-bats. He drew walks. There's some guys in there now that don't have as good as numbers, so he played in the steroid era. Obviously, in my opinion, didn't do anything like that. So I think both those guys deserve to go in. But, it's just up to the riders and stuff. But I know those two guys were very, very good hitters.
Did Fred McGriff teach you the high finish, or did you teach Fred McGriff the high finish?
Oh, gosh. I swing like that. The thing, Freddie always gives me a hard time, but I swing that way before they brought his sorry butt over from Toronto or wherever he came from. But, I actually had a high finish because of a wrist injury, because what happened is before I'd have two hands, and I had some problems. I was getting some cortisone injections into my I think it was my left wrist. So when I had to finish, I always try to let go. Mm-hmm. So that proceeded to come around the same time he was there. So, but yeah, we always joke each other about that when we see him. He goes, "He stole my finish. He stole my finish." But if you look at the home run that I hit, I think one of my first home runs, I had a high finish, and that was before Freddie even got traded there. So sorry, Freddie. I bet you he probably saw my swing and wanted to come up with something cool like mine.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.